Happy Tuesday. I'm Brad Hurlock, your host of the Garage Grit podcast, and also from AA Shop Marketing. And today we're going to give you a little bit of insight to the podcast that's being recorded tomorrow, live right here, and then it'll drop on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube the following week, probably on Tuesday morning. So, um, so that's the deal. And so today we're going to be touching on tomorrow's topic, which is hiring without the headaches. What red flags are people looking at? What filters are they going through? What's the process that they're dealing with? And so we're going to have some real conversation with three different shop owners from across the country. And so I'm really looking forward to that. So whether you're catching the replay of this live or whether you're catching it actually live, either way, I'm glad you're here. As always, feel free to add comments, make questions, whatever, and we'll be happy to respond back to them. The goal of this forum here in Facebook is to actually create an additional conversation on these topics. And so by all means, again, drop the comments, let us know. These are going to be more valuable to everybody if you're participating, when you're participating. All right, so let's set the stage. And just by the way, as you probably already know, I'm not a hiring coach. I'm a digital marketing specialist, and we work with auto repair shops every day from across the country. But what we're doing here in this Garage Grit podcast, on this Garage Grit project, is we, as well as these live streams, is we're trying to help as many shops as possible talk through specific issues that you're tackling and dealing with on a regular basis. This time around, it's hiring. We've talked in past podcasts, and you should check them out, how to hire top talent. We've also talked about how to retain top talent. This one is specifically more towards what flags are saying, hey, throw that resume or application out, as well as the process that actually is going to be around streamlining it for you so that it actually is smooth and efficient and, well, effective. And so that's what the podcast is going to be about tomorrow. And so make sure that you tune in or click like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so that you get notified when the episode drops next week. All right. But here we are live, and we're going to preview what's coming. I'm going to break down some of these common flags. And of course, we have an organic conversation, so I can't say for certain what's going to be said tomorrow. But here are some of the concepts around it, and then we'll have to find out more details when we listen in tomorrow. We all know that it's not just a labor shortage. It's specifically it's not just even a good mechanic shortage. It's a mechanic shortage in general across the country. And so making sure that we are picking and choosing not just the best and the brightest, but also the best fit is going to make it less of a gamble for you. And so that's going to be the hope, right? Is we're actually going to try to minimize the gambling process in the hiring process. So we're going to talk about, how they might look good on paper, but they aren't really showing up, either not at all, actually physically not showing up or mentally not showing up. And so you got to be careful of those techs that can talk a big game, but can't turn the wrench. Yeah. You also have a typical issue of, and by the way, with that is the number of people, you all know this, the number of people who actually apply for jobs well beyond what they're actually capable. And so some of those people are actually motivated, inspiring people who are trying to level up, and God bless them. Whereas there's a bunch of them who are just filling out applications so that they can say they filled out applications and go back to unemployment office or whatever the case might be. And so if you run a shop, with 5 people or 20 people or 5 locations, actually probably at some point you're going to have an HR department, but when you're only having 1 or 2 locations, you probably don't. And it probably falls on your shoulders more times than not. We've all been burned by bad hires, and we know how expensive and painful that can be. One comment that was touched on during one of the pre-interviews was just about the firing process after you have made a mistake. And so that was an interesting thing that we might end up touching on tomorrow. But let's focus right now, and I'm hoping this episode tomorrow focuses on filtering out the wrong people before they actually get in your door. I'm curious to hear from everybody else. I mean, some of the obvious red flags are incomplete applications or people who are just ghosting the interview or have unrealistic wage expectations, right? I mean, and then you've got the people who I can do everything. I'm Johnny Fix It, and so but they have zero certifications in their own employment history. The other one that jumps out at me is, well, speaking of jumping, is the job hoppers. And so I actually look to when we help with our customers recruit for or marketing, do the marketing to find those other people. We're looking for people who are not necessarily looking for a new job. They're just on the cusp, and that's I think that's one way to avoid the job hoppers. But it's something that's worthwhile is to see how often they're moving around. Um, Here's another layer. When someone applies, but they can't even follow the basic instructions. Uh, I'm curious, does anyone ever put in a unique instruction that you actually don't care about? You're just trying to see whether or not they can follow the instruction. Like, make sure you include a cover letter, and on the third line, write the word jump. I don't know, just something random, just to see whether or not they're paying attention or if they're just mindlessly pushing out applications as fast as they can. So does anyone else do something like that? A little, uh, what's it called in the video game world? I'm trying to think of what they, an Easter egg, kind of an Easter egg type approach to the job process. Um, what red flags jump out at you? Uh, so that's kind of my question to you. Let's see here, and obviously the question for tomorrow. Uh, let's shift now into actually working to avoid the bad hires before they waste your time. Are you doing phone screening, or is it just come on in, fill out an application, and I'll talk to you and look at you face to face? Or how are you doing any kind of skills test during the interview process? Um, do you have any kind of probationary period so that it's easier to terminate after a certain period of time? Or do you have on the job interviews? Do you involve your team in the hiring process? Uh, do you How heavy do you rely on character references beyond employment history? Are there non-negotiables that you're looking for that if they don't have, that ends up being a red flag for you? That maybe it's a willingness to learn, or the opposite of willingness to learn, or maybe it is something that's what you need to see. You need to have some sort of documentation that shows that they are willing to learn. Um, are you of the mindset that if they show up on time, they're showing up late? Like, meaning they have to show up 10 minutes early to make sure that they're actually working by the time they're supposed to start? Um, do you ask to see their tools to see how well they take care of their tools and their craft? Um, so what are some of your non-negotiables? Again, feel free to post comments, have some conversation about it. And maybe we can share some other ideas and some other nuggets for each other. And all right, let's now talk a little bit about the process. And this is going to be a conversation topic for tomorrow as well, where, like, what is your streamlined process, right? At the end of the day, we can't avoid every single bad hire, but having a documented process in place that you could potentially hand off to somebody else once you grow the shop enough, right? But a document in place that can actually guide the process as opposed to just throwing into the chaos. Um, so whether you're trying to hire for growth or just trying to swap somebody out, you've got this go-to manual that you've created for yourself. Hopefully you're not hiring on a monthly basis. Hopefully it doesn't happen. It happens only as often as the shop needs to, right? And so when we do things once a year or once every 6 months, we're not as refined on it. So having that document in place, I think, would be helpful. But I don't know what the three people who are going to be on the panel are going to be saying tomorrow about that idea. Maybe they have their own way of doing it. Maybe it's not so much as a written document as much as they Google the same document that someone else posted online at a previous time. Um, What does that process look like? Again, back to I mentioned, do you have an interview process or a working interview process, or do you have a pre-screening process over the phone? And even before that, because we do recruitment marketing, and for us that means we're just doing marketing to help you find mechanics. Uh, we know that you need to have very, very clear, specific job descriptions, specific expectations, and realistic pay ranges. I see that all the time on job ads where, oh, it's, there's a $70,000 pay range. Uh, Everybody believes that they're going to be at the top of that pay range. And so unless that top is actually realistic, you're just setting it up for failure. You're just setting it up for them to actually want to move on in 3 months. So, no, I think, and when it comes to digital marketing in general, by the way, the wider the net you cast, the fewer you actually bring in. The tighter the net, the more focused you are. You might bring in fewer, but they are all, or there more of them are home runs. And so, I'm sorry, I said that a little wrong. You might not bring in as many as you thought you would have, but more of them will be successful. Whereas if you cast a wider net, most are just falling through the cracks, and you're not going to get anybody worthwhile. So I say be as specific and focused as possible. All right. What is your again? Is it all on you, or can you delegate some of these activities to your team when it comes to uh, following up with them after the interview, or connecting with their past references or job history? Do you actually do any of that? Do you actually call their past jobs? Like, let's say, hey, all right, they've worked at 3 different shops, and you actually don't know any of the people in that list. Do you call them and ask about it? Or do you just kind of let it go? Or do you only call them when it's Harry down the street? I know him, right? So you tell me again. I'm hoping that you're going to start posting in these live streams and responding to the messages like we've had in the past a couple times. But I'd love to see more of it, because these live streams get more valuable with your engagement. I want to have this conversation, and we're going to again record tomorrow. And again, I don't know exactly all that everything is going to be said, but here are some of the top level ideas and points that we're might be covering. And as you know, we let the conversation just organically flow. But and then the following weeks on these live streams, we're going to break down that podcast into segments. And each week, I'm hoping, again, that you are going to be pushing back or adding to or having separate thoughts entirely about the conversation at large. So I'm hoping that you're going to keep that going on. All right. So what to do when you blew it and you did hire the wrong person? You hired a diva, or you hired just someone that is not nearly as motivated as you thought they might be. Firing it's difficult. And so what do you do about it? How do you do it? Is it just like do some of you actually treat it like a Band-Aid, rip it off as fast as you can? Or how long do you let it go, and how much does it cost the shop to do so? I don't know that you're doing anybody a favor by holding on to the wrong person. And I think there should be a difference between holding on to the wrong person and holding on to the right person at the wrong time. So I think back on my years of in the digital marketing space, and a long time ago, we had somebody on our team who was struggling with really struggle. Their work performance was starting to suffer because of their home life. And so, but we knew that they had the skills and the talent to bring to the table. And we allowed them a lot of leeway, and we helped them in their job to make sure that the job was being done right. But we also offered resources to try to help them through that difficult time. We tried to be patient with them, as well as we tried to help them through that difficult time. And I think that there's a time and place for that. That I think happens all the time in small business. One of the things I love about small businesses like yours and ours is I think that happens more often than it happens at places like Walmart. So anyway, all right. So back to the topic at hand. Sorry for that deviation there, that little slight rabbit hole. What if they're an amazing tech, but they just clash with everybody else there. That's not gonna go well. So, like, fitting into your specific culture is absolutely a part that should be at least discussed and figured out for yourself. Um, I mentioned the divas. You don't wanna bring drama to the shop, right? And you also don't necessarily want a yes man. You want them to actually, be able to speak. Okay, here's what's going on, and here's what can be done about this particular vehicle. Um, I mean, I want somebody who's eager, but I'd rather have somebody who's eager and a little green than someone with a bad attitude, but a few, decades of work experience. Um, Okay, I think it's okay just to flat out say no to a candidate and maybe even help them find a different shop. Maybe you know that the guy down the street actually has a different approach. Refer him out. Let's all help each other out when we can, right? Um, I mean, as long as it's not the guy for you, right? So I come across some of you guys that are doing that. Actually, I think I came across a guy in Connecticut, if I'm remembering right, from a few weeks ago when I was talking with him, and he was saying how he placed a guy not quite at a competitor, but it was a little bit of a different type of shop, but it was one of his better techs. But he also knew that he wasn't going to be able to keep the guy long term, and this next move would have been a better fit for him. And so, doing right by your team and doing right by your employees, all that does is get you referrals for more good employees. All right, let me wrap up. The hiring process is just it stinks. I know it. But firing is worse. So let's get the front end done correctly as best as we can. Let's fine tune it, and let's have a go-to worksheet so that we can refer to it. Because unless we're doing it regularly, it's not something that just comes naturally. Maybe right. So, um, uh, find your filters that work for you, and find those filters as far as how it applies to the culture of your shop. And that's my best guess of what we're going to be drilling into tomorrow. And so tune in tomorrow, or subscribe and on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, so that you get notified next week when the podcast drops. And in the meantime, if there's questions that you want me to ask tomorrow, now is the time to post them. Now. Well, I say now, but it's currently Tuesday the 15th. Happy tax day, right? It's now, between now and tomorrow morning is when I will to kind of field those questions. So I'll take a peek tomorrow morning before we go live. And if there are questions, I'll be able to kind of weave them into the conversation. What questions do you have, or what lessons have you had that you want to share with the group here? And I don't know, don't miss the conversation tomorrow on episode 17. We're going to go deeper, much deeper into this topic. I'm just going to let the conversation flow the way it will. And I will see you then. Thank you.